Good evening, everybody for ACDHH. This is February 17th, 2022. I'd like to start with a roll call, please.
Sure. Commissioner Keast.
Here.
Commissioner O'Rourke.
Here.
Commissioner Cinco.
Here.
Commissioner Benton.
Here.
Commissioner Cohen.
Here.
Commissioner Webster.
Here.
Commissioner Williams.
Here.
Commissioner Jantz.
Here.
Commissioner Scarborough.
Hello. Here.
Staff present. Jeremy McCone.
Here.
Carlos Castillo.
Here.
Carmen Greensmith. Sherry Collins.
Here.
Victoria Vaughn.
Here.
Emmett Hassan.
Here.
Nikki Socko.
Hello, everybody. Here.
Myself, Kyla Dalton Nava. And Joanne Handy.
Yes, here.
I think that's it.
Great. Thank you. I appreciate that. So we have a quorum. So I'm going to ask the board members to go ahead and turn their cameras off to make communication more accessible. Okay, so the first item on the agenda is to approve the minutes from the last board meeting. Any comments or a proposal for approving those minutes? I'd like to recommend that we approve those minutes from the last board meeting. That was from December 1st, 2021. Do I have a second? I second, so do I. Thank you, Commissioner Scarborough and Commissioner Benton. We have a second, thank you. All in favor? Please turn your cameras on. Aye, 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 aye. Any opposed? Seeing none, the motion carries. Thank you. So I have some things on the agenda that we need to discuss. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to respect everybody's time, and I want to make sure that we get through everything we have on the agenda. So I'm going to rearrange some of the items. First, I'm going to move prior public comment to the beginning. And then after public comments, we'll go ahead and discuss both the interpreter complaints. And that way we can capitalize on the AG's time as well, who's on the phone. And we can discuss the public comment as well. Can I have the secretary please come on screen? Please explain the public comment process and the time limits. We will give them 5 minutes. And then after the 5 minutes, we will have to cut them off. I can be a little bit flexible, but I would like to stick around 5 minutes for that.
This is just a point of clarification. The information that I have to read, Commissioner Jantz, says 3 minutes.
Right. And I think it's appropriate that we go ahead and give a little bit more time. So that's why I thought 5 minutes would be good. Got it.
The board is responsible for establishing time limits for public participation. Unless modified by the board at a particular meeting, each speaker is limited to 3 minutes on all topics, and we've modified that to 5 minutes tonight. Personal attacks on board members, staff, or other persons in attendance or absent are discouraged. Individuals are cautioned that statements concerning others that could be considered slanderous may subject the speaker to civil action. Those who violate this rule can be barred from future appearances before the board. This applies to both public hearings and board meetings. Your cooperation is appreciated.
I believe we have one public comment. Is that correct? Yeah, I've asked the person to join. So yeah, we'd like you to join for public comments now.
This is Jeremy. We have Helen Young with us. And she could not hear the rules in the waiting room, so those will need to be explained.
Okay. Commissioner Benton, would you mind coming on screen again and go ahead and explain the rules one more time for the public comments participants?
Board is responsible for establishing time limits for public participation. Unless modified by the board at a particular meeting, each speaker is limited to 3 minutes on all topics. And we have modified that tonight to be 5 minutes. Personal attacks on board members, staff, or other persons in attendance or absent are discouraged. Individuals are cautioned that statements concerning others that could be considered slanderous may subject the speaker to civil action. Those who violate this rule can be barred from future appearances before the board. This applies to both public hearings and board meetings. Your cooperation is appreciated.
Okay. The person who's here for public comment, please go ahead and unmute yourself and come on screen. And like we said, we'll start with 5 minutes and we'll start that timer when you begin to speak. Thank you.
Is that better?
My name is Helen Young, and I would like to speak to the council.
Hello, Ms. Young.
Hello.
Welcome. You're more than welcome to speak to the commission. You have your 5 minutes for your open comments.
I'm sorry, hang on just a second. My name is Helen Young, and I've been a RID certified interpreter since 1980. That's 40 plus years. I feel like everyone has a right to due process, and the infraction that I was accused of is one person's word against mine. And it wasn't a breach of the code of ethics. It was just a disagreement that I had with another interpreter. So I am asking for this discipline that has been levied against me to be suspended until I can go and find legal help and counsel to for these allegations, because I don't think that I had due process. The reason why I don't think I had due process is because I was unable to confront this person or to have any kind of say in the investigation of what they're saying that I did. And I also feel that the fine that was levied against me is a pretty hefty fine. I mean, there's not very many people that can afford to just hand over $1,000 because of some small infraction that they're accused of. I feel like I would like to ask for an investigation from the Attorney General's office about this whole situation, how it's done and how it's taken care of, because I don't think that people have their own ability to have a due process in this whole scenario, how it's done. And also, in 2004, I was involved with a lawsuit with ACDHH, and the state of Arizona and Mrs. Collins. The situation was that while I was sitting on the council, I disclosed some things to the other council members that were happening that I found out about that weren't brought to us, but I was reading The Views, which is a newspaper from RID, and I disclosed this to the rest of the council, and they agreed with me that Mrs. Collins was stepping out of line for what was happening. So subsequently, I was ostracized from Mrs. Collins, and I don't know how much I can disclose, but anyway, she did some things that were against the law, and she did not have a right to do this. So I filed a lawsuit. It took 3 years, of course, to get to the court. And during that 3 years, she continued with her behavior of what she was doing. So when we had the lawsuit, I received a large amount of money from the state for Mrs. Collins' behavior. And I feel like this behavior is continuing, and I just don't think it's fair that she's able to do this. And I don't think that I was treated fairly, losing my legal license, nor do I think it's fair that I get this heavy fine, and if I don't pay it, I lose my license. That's my livelihood. And just because of one person's complaint. And I guess that's all I have to say.
Time.
Okay.
Thank you, Ms. Young. We appreciate your willingness to participate in open public comments. So your time is wrapped up now. So we would like to thank you, and we're going to move on. We have another public comment to be made, correct?
Are you talking to me or someone else? Okay.
No, I was talking to the rest of the board. Apparently, we have no other public comments. So Jeremy, I'm asking that you move the participants back to the waiting room so that she can view the rest of the meeting live stream.
This is Jeremy. It does not work like that. Mrs. Young would have to leave the meeting, or she can stay with her camera off and watch it on YouTube, but she can't hear anything once she's in the waiting room, you know what I mean? If she's in the waiting room, she might as well go ahead and disconnect from the meeting. There would be no point for her to just sit in the waiting room.
Oh, okay. So go ahead and you can either disconnect or go back to the waiting room and she can access the live stream that way, and she can do that on her own.
Yes, Mrs. Young, what you would want to do is go to YouTube and then click on our channel, which is A as in Apple, Z as in Zebra, C as in Charlie, D as in Delta, H as in Henry, H as in Henry. So if you just on YouTube search for that channel, you'll see us live on there and you can watch the proceedings from there.
Okay.
But
All
at this
right.
time, it would be best for you to leave the meeting because you just sitting in a waiting room you won't hear or see anything.
Okay.
Thank you.
I would like to attend the meeting. I mean, I just want to listen. That's it.
Right.
Okay. All right.
you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Kyla. I'd like to now move on with the item number 14 on the agenda. That's a legal advice discussion related to Helen Young. I'd like to confirm that our AG is still available on the phone.
Yes, I'm available, and I'd like to recommend that we go into an executive session for legal advice.
Thank you, Joy. I'm glad you're here. And I'd like to make a motion that we move into executive session. Do I have a second? Commissioner Webster? You're on mute.
I move that we go into executive session.
Okay, thank you. So I made the same motion, so I'll go ahead and second your motion. Are there any votes for going into executive session? Please come on camera and show your support. Any opposing? Seeing none, the motion carries, and we'll go ahead and go into executive session at 5 p.m.
Okay, this is Jeremy, so I'm going to call off the names, and if they need to go into executive session, please say yay or nay. Andrew Cohen, Lee, the interpreter Sandra, Jen Shuck as captioner, Carmen Green Smith, Catherine Cienko. Was that a yes on Carmen?
Yes.
Okay. Catherine Cienko, Emmett Hassan.
No. No.
Okay. Fred Williams, interpreter Jeremy Brunson, Jennifer Scarborough, Joanne Handy,
Yes,
Melanie O'Rourke, Missy Keast, Sarah Benton,
Yes.
Sherry Collins,
Yes.
Susan Webster,
Yes.
and PV Jantz.
Yes.
Okay, you all are entering now.
And I just wanted to make sure that it's all the ACDHH board members that they need to go.
Correct. And
So
no
Emmett
staff.
and Victoria and Sherry Collins and Carmen.
Okay, Victoria needs to go in.
Yes.
Thank you,
Okay,
Jerry.
I just love last minute.
Jeremy,
changes.
Jeremy, we're
Yeah.
live.
Okay,
Hey, Jeremy, this is Commissioner Scarborough. I think I needed to be there.
okay.
All right. Good evening. We are now starting our open session at 6:52 and want to take a break. Please be back at 7 o'clock on the dot, and we'll see you then.
Okay, I just wanted to double check to make sure everyone was here. We need to make sure that we still have a quorum before we begin the live stream. So please, all board members, could you please turn your cameras on so that we can make sure that everyone's back? Okay, we're ready, it's on. So we're still waiting to make sure that we have a quorum. Okay, so we have a quorum. Thank you, everyone. I wanted to go ahead and start the meeting at 7:02. Jeremy, we can go ahead with the live stream. Are we good?
Yes, the live stream doesn't stop. It keeps going, so you're still on.
Oh, okay, thank you. And captioning, the interpreters, everybody's ready? Okay, so we'll go ahead and begin. I know that we're quickly running out of time here, so we need to use our remaining time to get through this. So we're on agenda item related to Helen Young. Is there any discussion or considerations to be made? I want to remind you, there are no comments. If you have no comments, please turn your camera off so that we can improve accessibility for communication purposes. And once you come back on camera, please wait until you're recognized so the interpreter can identify you before you begin to speak. So any discussion or considerations regarding that agenda item? I want to remind you this is an active agenda item. So I recognize Commissioner Benton.
Thank you, Commissioner Jantz. I would like to make a motion that we withdraw the motion from our last board meeting regarding the fine, the civil fine for Helen Young of $1,000.
Okay, so we have a motion. Commissioner Webster, are you seconding the motion?
I'm seconding the motion, Commissioner Webster.
Thank you for clarifying this. So this motion includes the $1,000 fine and also includes the CE requirements. And if those two are not met, it would include a suspension. That's right. Thank you. So the motion has been made and seconded. So all those in favor, please say aye. Any opposed? Abstentions? Okay, the motion carries. Any continuing discussion? Commissioner Benton?
I'd like to make a motion that the commission imposes a fine of $1,000 to Helen Young for the a $1,000 penalty for the, for the matters that were brought before the board at the last meeting.
Okay, so we have a new motion. Is there a second? Commissioner Webster?
I second the motion.
Okay, also we see that Commissioner Keast is also seconding the motion. Any discussion? Commissioner Keast? And then Commissioner Scarborough. Thank you, Commissioner Jantz. I think the fine of $1,000 is reasonable. And I'd like to keep it at that level. I think it's reasonable disciplinary action.
This is Commissioner Scarborough. I think we have also under instruction from the Attorney General, we've also been able to consider past behaviors and patterns and overall performance of an interpreter and a licensed interpreter. And I think that is important for us to consider in general as well when considering how we treat these types of infractions. And so it's important that we consider that as well when we're making these decisions.
Thank you, Commissioner Scarborough. Commissioner O'Rourke?
I didn't have anything to add.
Oh, I thought you had a comment. Sorry. Okay, well, thank you. So I won't repeat my comments from the previous board meeting. That's already part of the record of the board meeting. What I will say, and what I will emphasize again, so we take complaints very seriously. Those complaints from consumers, as well as colleagues and peers of interpreters from the community. We have to look at all of the evidence and facts during the that are collected during the investigation. And that information is brought to us after it's brought to the certifying group. And we review all of that seriously. And as Commissioner Scarborough mentioned, previous behaviors, previous infractions can be considered. I was very open about my disappointment with the situation. And I agree that a $1,000 fine is extremely reasonable and appropriate. Considering all of the evidence, I believe the bottom line is that the interpreter, we have to be held to a high standard and a high standard of professionalism and behavior. And it requires the maintaining of trust of the community from the consumers. And they must maintain the ability to work with those consumers who are considered a vulnerable population. This is necessary to make sure that interpreters' processes are fair, accurate, and are not creating harm and not taken advantage of and benefiting from personal gain benefits. We need to protect the community, protect the consumers who interpreters are receiving your professional services. When we have bad actors that impacts the community broadly. And it affects the trust that consumers have in the professional services that they're receiving. Are there any other public comments or discussions related to the motion before we proceed? Okay, I'd like to have a roll call for the vote, please. Kyla?
Okay. Commissioner O'Rourke,
Yes.
Commissioner Webster,
Yes.
Yes.
Commissioner Williams,
Yes.
Commissioner Scarborough,
Yes.
Commissioner Keast,
Yep.
Commissioner Cinco,
Yes.
Commissioner Cohen,
Abstain?
Commissioner Jantz,
Yes.
and Commissioner Benton.
Yes. Thank you. The motion carries. I'd like to also now make a motion for an informal resolution offer to be made to Ms. Young. And before I make that motion, I want to make sure that we have a good discussion about what is reasonable and appropriate for this informal resolution. Any comments or considerations for the board? Commissioner Scarborough?
Uh, are you asking for a motion?
Yes, either a motion or a discussion about the potential for an informal resolution.
I am leaning towards a informal resolution that asks for the behaviors that the community and the commission wants to see rather than a financial punitive disciplinary action. Does that make sense?
Commissioner Keast, do you have a comment for the board? Yeah, so I'm thinking about this. As I sit here, I'm already confused about what we've done. We've already voted for the punitive action. Now we're talking about informal resolution, so I'm kind of confused. So I recommend that we hold off on any discussion of an informal resolution until Ms. Young has been notified of the punitive fine that we've just voted for. That's where I'm at right now.
I appreciate your comments, Commissioner Keast. The concern is that we have created a formal discipline action. However, we need to propose an informal resolution as well. May I speak? Yes, the floor is all yours, please, if you have a comment. Commissioner Keys, thank you. It's kind of like Hollywood Squares. Do you remember that game? So many screens coming on. I felt taken back in time for a moment. All right, so an informal resolution. Something with probation, perhaps, oversight to monitor the time where we can determine during that observation, perhaps it be a one-on-one meeting to see where she stands or where we stand, something that is more of a interaction. So perhaps a probation of sorts would be a good informal resolution. No considerations for discussion? The floor is open.
I would like to make a motion that we offer an informal resolution for the fine of $100, that the informal resolution be 5 hours of CEUs in the area of ethics.
Okay, we have a motion on the floor. Is there anyone seconding the motion? Seeing none, I will second it myself. And I recognize Commissioner Webster seconded it as well. All in favor, please raise your hand, turn on your camera. Opposed? One opposed. All right, so the motion carries. Commissioner Benton.
I'd like to make a motion that for the second penalty, that we offer an informal resolution of a 25% reduction in the penalty, the civil penalty.
Okay. Do I see a second to the motion? We have Commissioner Williams making a second, and we have Commissioner Keast requesting an amendment. Yes, a 25% reduction, in addition, an ethical workshop as well. Commissioner Benton, to accept the motion as amended.
If I could just, I'm a little confused. So we just added the ethical workshops to the $100 fine as an informal resolution. And I'm just not clear about the ability to stack the penalties. And so I thought we just understood that we needed to keep them separate and have singular penalties and not stack penalties. So that's why I thought if we put the CEUs under the $100 penalty as our informal resolution and the 25% reduction for the $1,000 penalty, that we still have the CEUs, but it's just under the first penalty.
Okay, Commissioner Benton, Commissioner Keist, one moment, please. Commissioner Benton, does that mean you reject the proposed amendment?
Yes.
All right, the amendment is rejected, and now I would like to make a point of clarification. The previous motion had already passed, and with the 5 hours CEU'd as an informal resolution and $100 fine has been maintained. Now, the current motion on the floor specifically is the informal resolution for the $1,000 fine. That is looking for a second, then a specific 25% decrease as an informal resolution. Is that clear? Go ahead, Commissioner Keist. I wanted to clarify, not for the informal, but adding the 25% reduction while adding something more of an informal for the second complaint. And the reason being that I would like to discuss is that the $100 fine has already been explained, and the second is then already complained about by one person having issue with personal conflict of the person at a job, a place of job. And with Miss Young. And so the two proposed interpreters having a conflict, so that $1,000 is not considered her issue. That is from my observation on how the statement read at the board meeting. So I'm thinking from her complaint, because of the other interpreter having a conflict with her, which is considered an ethical violation in itself or an ethical conflict. That's where my argument is, my disagreement. Commissioner Scarborough. Right now we're discussing the proposed motion, is that right? So I actually am in disagreement with this informal proposal to reduce the $1,000 fee. I think the reduction in fee is not really appropriate as a replacement for, as an informal resolution, as Missy or Commissioner Keist stated. This is ethical, an ethical problem. This situation is. So I suggest an informal solution would be to not be financial, a financial punishment. And I would also recommend that it be something more along the lines of a probation type situation instead of a financial punishment. So that, I believe, would be more in line with the ethical monitoring of the interpreter's behavior to try to encourage the behavior to improve, to be more in line with ethical, professional interpreting behavior. Commissioner Keys, I agree with that. So if we're complaining about the financial aspect of the punishment, then a formal punishment, then the interpreter recently just openly complained about that punishment itself. So instead of that, an informal resolution might be, or informal punishment could be a probation of sorts for that complaint of the financial hardship. Now, Commissioner Webster, we have a motion on the floor, so I'm looking for a second, and the motion is a 25% decrease of the civil money. So we need to have that passed. So it could be withdrawn and then voted on. And then if once it passes, okay. All right, I see several people coming on screen, and please hold one person at a time, please. I was saying the original motion was to withdraw that original motion. Commissioner Webster, I apologize and I appreciate your patience. You have a comment about the current motion on the floor as it stands? Would you like to make have discussion?
This is Commissioner Webster, and I'm confused. Which motion did we just withdraw?
So the motion up for discussion is an informal resolution of a 25% reduction on the civil money penalty. And that is what we are discussing right now with Commissioner Benton that withdrew the original motion.
And I had something to add to the discussion, but it can wait.
Please go ahead and make your discussion now while we're on this motion.
Okay, then I have to agree with the comments that were just made. Due to the number of years that Ms. Young has been an interpreter and the number of previous complaints, I think it's critical for us to maintain that high level of ethical standards. And because of her long term as an interpreter, I would expect her to set the higher bar for standards for other interpreters. So I think $1,000 should be held.
Thank you, Commissioner Webster. I appreciate your comments. So with that being said, we have a motion, and that motion has already been seconded. So we need both persons who made the motion and withdrawn, Commissioner Benton, and the person who's seconded to accept the withdrawal of the motion. I second it, Commissioner Keist. So Commissioner Keist, you're accepting the withdrawal of the motion? Commissioner Benton's asking, who are you asking? Commissioner Jantz says Ms. Keist. Ms. Keist, are you seconding Commissioner Benton's withdrawal of the motion? Commissioner Benton made the motion. Sorry. No, that was Fred seconded that. Commissioner Benton is saying. This is Commissioner Jantz. I want to clarify. Commissioner Benton made the motion, and Commissioner Williams seconded. Is that correct?
Yes.
Yes.
Commissioner Williams, did you second that motion?
Yes.
And Commissioner Jantz here, and you accept the withdrawal? you approve the withdrawal?
Yes.
Commissioner Jansier, okay, thank you. The motion has been formally withdrawn by both Commissioner Benton and Commissioner Williams. Thank you for your patience while we clarify that. Now, have a question. Commissioner Keast, you have a comment. Commissioner Keast here, I want to backtrack a little bit. I want to make sure that I understand clearly. It seems that my video is delayed a bit. I support the withdrawal regarding Commissioner Benton's, but I want to see exactly what she, I want to make sure I understand clearly the details of what she was saying and the implications. Commissioner Jansier, to clarify, Commissioner Benton had a motion for an informal resolution of 25% reduction on the civil penalty. Mr. Williams seconded that. Both Commissioner Benton withdrew that, and Commissioner Williams approved that. So that has been canceled and dropped. So we can discuss or make a new motion on that issue.
Thank you.
Commissioner Keast, thank you. Thank you for your time and for clarifying that, Commissioner Keast says. I think that the penalty for at $1,000 should stand. And also ethical probation should also be added as well. Commissioner Jansier, the $1,000 fine has already been voted on and passed. We can't change that. Okay, we can't add to that motion. It's already been voted on and passed. We can make a new motion, Commissioner Keast, but Commissioner Benton withdrew that motion for the 25% penalty. Okay, all right. So then withdraw the 25% with reduction. I want to go with the same penalty, but add the ethical portion, training, workshop, or probation, a probationary period for 6 months' time. Commissioner Jantz, to clarify, Commissioner Keast, are you saying that you want to make a motion to amend the prior motion that was already passed in regards to the $1,000 fine? Yes. Okay, the motion has already been passed, so we can't make an amendment to the motion that has already passed. You can make a new motion if you'd like. Commissioner Keast, I would like to make a new motion to put Ms. Young on a probationary status for 6 months. Commissioner Jantz, we have a motion on the floor. Do we have a second? Commissioner Scarborough, I second that. Commissioner Jantz, Commissioner Scarborough has seconded. We can now have a discussion on that. Point of clarification. When what we're facing is stacking of penalties, and we shouldn't be stacking penalties. This second motion here will be considered a stacking of penalties between the $1,000 fine and then amending the CEUs or the probation.
Can I do a friendly amendment?
Commissioner Scarborough.
Okay, a friendly amendment, please. This is an informal punishment or penalty. That would be 6-month probation. So it's the same motion, but I want to make it as an informal penalty. Does that work?
Commissioner Jantz, so we have an amendment proposed to change the language, or, this is an informal penalty or an informal resolution that you're proposing?
Of course, right. I'm sorry. I meant an informal resolution.
Commissioner Jantz, okay, so the motion amendment is an informal resolution regarding a 6-month probationary period. And Commissioner Keast, do you accept that
I do.
amendment?
I do accept it.
Commissioner Jantz, now we have a motion as an amendment that says that an informal resolution offer of 6-month probation. I'd like to make a friendly amendment to that amendment, meaning that the probation means that you must satisfy the requirements of a provisional licensee interpreter for that 6-month period.
That works.
Do you accept that amendment?
I do.
Commissioner Jantz? Okay. Commissioner Scarborough, do you accept the amendment to your amendment?
I do. Thank you.
Commissioner Jantz, to rephrase, we have an amendment proposed of an informal resolution being offered, including a 6-month probationary period following a provisional licensee requirement during that 6-month period. Is that clear?
Did I turn my camera off now? Yeah, it's very clear. Very clear.
Any consideration, discussion on this point? Let's go to Emmett. Yes, I want to ask you all during the discussion to be careful to consider the implications of this probation and what it entails. Following a provisionary rules, there's 2 different processes for a provisional. Provisional B means that you can work alone, for example, and requires that you work with a team for 8 hours with a team 8 hours a month with a generalist or legal interpreter, or you can mentor with a generous legal interpreter or general interpreter for a period of time. Provisional C interpreter is you're teaming with a generous or legal interpreter all the time. So we have to clarify what we mean when we say following the rules of a provisional interpreter. Okay.
This is much more complicated than I thought it was going to be.
Commissioner Jantz, thank you, Emmett, for that clarification. Commissioner Keast, do you have a comment?
I'm sorry, what'd you say?
Commissioner Jantz, Commissioner Keast, do you have a comment?
I do. After Emmett's comments, I realized, okay, right, there's 3 different types of license. So with probation, I think the probation should be with a deaf person who also is experienced with interpreting. So perhaps a certified deaf interpreter should be the person who oversees the probation. But somebody said once a month, and I think it should be more than that, more than once a month. It's just complicated, more complicated than I thought it was, I have to admit. I think we can solve that if we got maybe a certified deaf interpreter who would supervise the probation for 6 months. Maybe once a week rather than once a month.
Commissioner Scarborough. It really is a big difference between a provisional B and a provisional C interpreter. The biggest difference is a provisional B interpreter works without a team interpreter, and the other is with a team the whole time. One thing to remember is that we want her to work with another certified interpreter who is an ethical interpreter, and she will have to see good modeled behavior, ethical behavior is. So that is the intention. That's what we want. So that means
Add a C
a
then.
provisional C would be what we're looking for.
Yes.
Commissioner Jantz, okay. Just as you were talking about the potential, so are you talking about a friendly amendment then?
Yeah, so I would like to have a friendly amendment that the probation, what the wording would be level with the C. So meaning she would have to work with a team for the entire 6-month period of her probation.
Commissioner Jantz, okay. Commissioner Keast, because you made the original motion and now are making an amendment, we need a second person who second that motion to approve that amendment.
Okay, I second it then?
Okay, Commissioner Scarborough seconds that amendment. Hopefully we get the wording right here. So propose as amended, the motion as amended is an informal resolution offering a 6-month probationary period following the rules of a provisional C licensee.
Yes.
Is that correct so far?
Yes.
Any continuing discussion on this motion? Commissioner Benton.
I just don't know how the office staff is supposed to oversee this probation. I love the idea of it. I think it's a great opportunity. But I just don't understand how they're going to monitor her work and how they're going to find somebody who's willing to mentor with her on a monthly basis. I don't know how we can task the office staff with managing the work of an interpreter. And maybe I just need to be updated or informed on how that can happen. I just don't know how I don't know how this can practically occur. And yeah, so I would just like more information on that.
Commissioner Jantz, is there any more continuing thoughts or discussion? Commissioner Keast?
Yes, that was a real good question from Commissioner Benton. And I thought about this before. I was thinking, who's going to oversee this? How do we find that person? And I'm thinking, well, not someone, but yeah, so perhaps, Phoenix College, the IPP, they have 3 evaluators there who are experienced with assessing students in American Sign Language before they go into the IPP. And they do this every semester. Perhaps we can ask one of them to do it. Maybe we can develop some kind of contract where they will monitor her so they can get paid. And some kind of licensed evaluator who can oversee the probation. I know that we have to do this quickly because it's going to take, with time and review and all that stuff, but it's a good question for us to consider.
Commissioner Scarborough, before you begin, I want to remind everyone that we have a current motion on the floor, and we need to discuss that motion or potential amendments. We can withdraw it or vote on that motion before we discuss new potential motions. Commissioner Scarborough.
Okay, so can we ask Emmett, staff here, whether or not this is even feasible?
This is Emmett. Okay. Feasible on what? Can you clarify what you mean?
Yes. So I know that we have provisional C interpreters in the state. And they do every day work, and I've hired them myself. So I know they do that. I know they work with teams. I know they have to document their work, and I know they're able to do that. I know they send that to you and the commission. I know there's a screening process, there's a check, a vetting and all that kind of stuff about the teams and things like that. All that, those logistics have been worked out so they can maintain their license. So as the commissioner, you do track those provisional Cs. So my question to you is that in this situation, in the motion that we proposed, in terms of the informal punishment or penalty of 6-month probation, really treating Ms. Young as a provisional C licensee, is that possible? Could you do that?
Thank you, Commissioner Scarborough, for the clarification. You know, a Class C provisional interpreter is always teamed with a generalist or legal interpreter at all times. It's not they're not required to report or to log their time at all. It only applies to provisional B interpreters. They're required to work with the other interpreters, licensed interpreters, every month, and they inform the commission that they're working with a provisional B. And if you're talking about a mentoring program or a teaming of 8 hours a month, that means a person signs off on a log. And when it's time to renew, then they send that log to us. We review it and then contact the mentor to verify that those meetings did happen. So that's how the commission does that. And that includes continuing education. So there's a difference there. I want to clarify. So if you're designing a process, for example, requiring an interpreter to report that they're teaming with a certified interpreter and there's an agreement between the two, they would send that to us. We set up a system of some type where they report to us on a regular basis. How do you decide to do that is up to you. But that is feasible for us to monitor that if as necessary.
Okay, so there's no monitoring system in place for a provisional interpreter at all? So not monitoring, we expect them to be teamed, and the provisional C has to be teamed, but for provisional B, that's where the reporting happens. So there's monitoring, there's a log that takes place for the provisional B, not the provisional C. Does that answer your question? I guess we're just hoping they follow the rules then? Okay, got it. Yeah, the pictures are moving around. So for example, for the 20 days, the 20-day rule, people who register for that, the rules require a person to report to the commission within 5 days from when they start working. So they have to let us know, for example, I work this day and I work this day, things like that. And so they keep track of that information most of the time. And sometimes that works, sometimes it doesn't. So it's really kind of the honor system, but we do require them to report every 5 days. But how do we force that to happen or enforce that? We haven't figured that out yet for the probationary period. Commissioner Keast. So the honor system doesn't seem it's going to work today. With probation, we need to add some kind of new, I don't know, we need some way, some process. We need to evolve because it's not working right now. This is staff member Emmett Hansen. One idea is that we could have an agreement or a contract with the individual where he or they have to report their hours with us, and the person who's observing them could too. Kind of like a probation officer situation, right? So when you go in, you have to check in with them, and we could say to this individual that they're responsible to report to us. If you're expecting this to last for 6 months, then we could say once a week they have to document their hours for an entire 6 months, and then we can present that to the board at the end of the 6 months. That's another option, if that's what you guys wanted us to do. Okay, just make sure the interpreters are up to speed. Okay, so I agree with this. I think with the probation officer, and they're already salaried, right? They're being paid because that's what their job is. But for an interpreter to act as a probation officer type thing, I don't know. That's a lot of volunteer work on their part. I don't think that's reasonable. I think we need to find some kind of fund, perhaps a grant or something like that, where we could pay an interpreter to supervise in this situation. Some kind of way of compensating them for their time. Because if they're not, otherwise they may not take it as seriously and may not, be as strict as they should be. This is Emmett, and I can't answer that, but right. That's the problem everywhere. Commissioner Keith, yes. This is something we would have to talk about next time, or a new plan we need to develop going forward. That's all I want to say. So I'm done. Commissioner Jantz. Okay, so now we have a motion. And it seems like we have some concerns. So I want to remind everybody, the original motion can be withdrawn. And the second of that motion can be withdrawn, or we can proceed with a vote on the current motion. My comment is, or my thought is, I don't see any issues with potentially withdrawing the motion and kind of seeing what happens with the process. We can always broach this subject again if it's necessary. Commissioner Keese, you have brought up some concerns and doubts. So it was your motion, so we'll start there. Yeah, I'm still thinking about it. You're right. I need 2 minutes and I'm just kind of. So I think the $1,000 fine is appropriate. And I think we should just keep it there. That's kind of, we can keep it this simple. I do think we should add an ethical component, some kind of training. So I can withdraw my motion, the amendment for the 6-month probation. However, I would like to add an ethical training component to the fine. Commissioner Jantz, point of clarification. So you can't withdraw and then add another motion. It has to be one at a time. So right now we have a motion that we can continue, or you can withdraw. Commissioner Keist, I'm going to keep the amendment, the 6-month probation with an amendment. Can any commissioner make a motion? Okay. Okay, so Commissioner Jantz, so you don't have a specific amendment for the motion, right? And so in my opinion, my humble opinion, it seems to be a lot of trepidation here. So I think the issue is maybe, or the solution maybe to withdraw and then see if the seconder withdraws and accepts that, and then create a new motion, or we could wait and see what the result of the civil penalty is.
Hi, excuse me, this is Joanne. As you know, I'm the Assistant Attorney General. I just wanted to comment that waiting to see how the $1,000 fine works out is not terribly helpful. What I recommend is that the commission determine for complaint number 2 and the $1,000 fine, that the commission determine what it would like to offer as an informal resolution, and then what it would like to offer as an informal settlement offer if the licensee requests a hearing. And I know, Commissioner Jantz, that you're working with keeping all the motions and amendments to motions straight. So my comment is not about any motion. It's just to perhaps provide a little bit of direction for the conversation.
This is Commissioner Jantz. Thank you, Joanne. I appreciate your advice always. Thank you so much. So, Commissioner Keist, we still have your motion to address. So Commissioner Scarborough, did you have a comment as well? Actually, I'm just waiting. And Commissioner Keist, like, actually, I'm hoping for your assistance. Commissioner Scarborough, that's what I'm doing. Take a stand. Okay, here's my decision. I am withdrawing the informal resolution of 6-month probation. Commissioner Jantz. Commissioner Scarborough, do you accept that withdrawal? I do. Okay, so the motion is formally withdrawn. And I'm sure you've all heard the story from the AG. You heard what the AG just said. The formal resolution is suggested, the informal resolution is suggested. So that means we need to decide how we want to proceed at this point. But I want to caution you all that the interpreters are scheduled only until 8:30, and the CART is also only until 8:30. So we are quickly running out of time. And we still have an entire agenda that we haven't even begun to discuss. Commissioner Keist. So I propose that we hold the rest of the agenda till the next meeting, because we really need to just finish this business. And so I think we can discuss this till 8:30. That would be my suggestion. Commissioner Jantz. So we have a motion to table the rest of the agenda until this business is concluded. Do we have a second? Commissioner Scarborough seconds it. Okay, Commissioner Scarborough seconded it. Any comments? Commissioner Williams, did you have a comment? Okay, so any additional comments or considerations? Okay, so who's in favor of tabling the rest of the agenda until this business is concluded? Please come on screen and show your support. Opposed? Seeing none, the motion carries. So we'll continue this discussion. So we need to decide what we're going to do about the informal resolution. Currently, there's no motion on the floor, and we're open for any new motions. Commissioner Benton.
I guess I have a question. I would like to suggest that we do not offer an informal resolution, and that if we have a hearing that is requested, then we can talk about an informal settlement at that point. But to jump right to an informal resolution when we've just had, let's see, it's 8 o'clock. We started before, well, we went into executive session at 5:05. So we've had 3 hours of trying to hash this out, which tells me this is something that we feel so passionately about, and it's so important to all of us that I would like to see us stick to the $1,000 fine that we just imposed because we all felt that was important and not offer an informal resolution. And then if the individual does request a hearing and we want to start talking about an informal settlement at that point, and at that point, we're ready to talk about whether it's probation or whatever type of ethical training to address the behavior so that we're actually addressing what it is that we see as the issue, then let's talk about an informal settlement. But I don't know why we don't have to offer an informal resolution. We can say there is none. This is what it is. And if you're not happy with that and you want to go further and you want to say, I'm going to request a hearing, well then, okay, then we can maybe talk about an informal settlement. But I don't know why we have to right away out of the gate have an informal resolution to offer.
Well,
Hi again. This is
no,
hi
we
again.
lost
Excuse me.
Commissioner Cohen, so we no longer have a quorum. Joanne, just so you know, we no longer have a quorum at this point, meaning that the meeting must conclude at this time.
Okay, thank you.
Can you check if Andrew has officially left? Commissioner Cohen, can you verify that you have indeed left the meeting? I can check, Commissioner Cohen said. Please wait. Commissioner Cohen, Commissioner Jantz asked, are you there?
This is Jeremy. I do see him in the participants list, but he's not responding. I've asked him to start his camera and unmute. No response.
Mr. Chair, I apologize. We have to conclude the meeting at this point. If there is no response from Commissioner Cohen, meaning that we have to reschedule a special board meeting. That's all there is to it. Commissioner Jantz, I agree. My attempt to contact him did not receive a response. So that means that we have to formally recognize that the quorum has been lost and we need to conclude the meeting at 8:04 p.m. Thank you, interpreters. Thank you, Cart. Thank you, staff. Thank you, Jeremy. We really appreciate it. And
No problem.
good night. Bye, Betty. Good to see you. Goodbye.